started about 84, 85, and that was the big kind of explosion of house in Sheffield. I'd had my eye on the guy who promoted it. I'd always, like, because Sheffield's so tiny, you see people, and I'd always liked the look of him. And he'd got a girlfriend and everything, so it was always just from a distance. I knew right who he was. He was the promoter, so I only went so I could get another look at him, actually. People had said, oh, there's some really good music happening here. And so we started going to that. Their playlist was pretty eclectic, so they play all sorts of different stuff. So, you know, Jive Turkey is named after an Ohio players track, and then so they play that kind of stuff, and they used to play the cricket theme tune famously, and they play, you know, so actually it wasn't pure house, although it became more housey. And then suddenly that just turned me on. That was all I was into. Although I did go to lots of other stuff, the really cheesy clubs that I used to go to, and I always carried on going to those, but actually it was about the house parties, and there'd be Saturday night at Mona Lisa's, which was upstairs, so where the Fest Club is. And then they do a midweek one usually, and it was called different names, but it was always the same guys who did it. And then you'd go to warehouse parties, which would be under the arches or up on Hyde Park, or, you know, out in Kelvin Flats, which isn't there anymore, and they'd be the same guys DJing, or people from the scene DJing, but always fellas, all men. As people from that scene started making records, so around the same time, you know, or kind of evolving from that same scene, there was Fun Records, and then Warp kind of evolved from that, and there were more women around as part of that kind of scene. So at Jive Turkey, it was, you know, and this is my perspective, not somebody who worked for me, but the party was as much women as men, and I always say that now, and it makes me cross when all the kind of younger guys retell that history with no women in it. And people kind of laugh at me now, but I always put on Facebook how we brought the party as much as you did, guys, because, you know, you can't tell that story without telling my, you know, and leave me out of it. And there were women, you know, there was a woman, for instance, called Ruth Joy, who's still around. She was at Cabal on Saturday, and she was in Crush, you know, she made House Arrest. She was going out with or married to Rob Gordon, you know, they had kids together, so she was kind of as much part of that scene, fabulous dancer, really strong on the scene. You know, there were lots of other women who were around and visible. There was a woman who documented that scene really through photography. Barbara, who isn't, you know, she died a while ago, but Barbara took pictures. Julie Stewart was there, who was an amazing dancer, you know, and really iconic actually, that iconic picture of that woman with her arms up, you know, which is the kind of iconic image of Jive Turkey. That's Julie Stewart. So, you know, who represents Jive Turkey? A woman. And so women were in that, you know, it wasn't exclusive in that way as a party, but in terms of who you saw DJing and promoting, it's very boys club. You know, so the only woman you'd see as part of that organisation was the girl on the checkout, you know, on the coat check. You never, you know, there were no promoters. And when I talked to Matt, the fellow who promoted it, who's my husband now, you know, I'll say it's a boys club, like he runs a label and that's a boys club, and they don't put out any music about women, and they don't involve women. And you just go, oh, it's just what it is, isn't it? Oh, I'm not sexist. And he isn't actually, but it's still who makes the music, who produces the music, who's, but who consumes the music and who brings the party.